Well, happy calendar New Year's to those of you that are listening to this when it comes out or shortly after. I say calendar New Year because I personally believe that the new year begins at the spring equinox, March 21st, which is the beginning of the new cycle for nature and astrology. But here we are with the calendar New Year. So, what do I want to talk about? I want to talk a little bit about reflection, reflecting upon where we're at, maybe both individually and collectively over a very a very full year, and intentions more than resolutions as we go into a new cycle, into a new phase. And the thing is time is a bit of an illusion, right? So we can always begin again at every point. But because we have these collective beliefs, that's like, right, January 1st is, a new year. We're going into 2025. And what does that mean? And, ordinarily getting into resolutions and the pressure and all of these things. And but the point is it brings up a time, a moment, an opportunity to reflect. And reflection is actually really powerful and potent because it's where we stop for long enough to be able to absorb and process what we've gone through, to come into a still point so that we know, how do I want to step forward? How do I want to move forward from this point? Knowing that, we're just moving from every now moment into another every now moment. But still, we feel it as something that's building chronologically or linearly. But I want to talk about intention because the power of our intention. So once we reflect and we come into that still point, we get to really choose. This is where we have power, so much power in our ability to be able to choose what we give our focus to. And so I want to create an invitation for us as a collective. Of course, we're going to have our personal individual things, and that's fine. That's beautiful. That's perfect. But what can we, as a collective, as a humanity, what can we create together? And I think this year that we're stepping into more than ever will really, really require us to unite in not a hive mind, but in a unity consciousness where our intentions and the drivers of those intentions are in alignment. And that we're all on board, because then we really truly can change the world, and we really truly can create the future that we've maybe been dreaming or hoping for, but expecting someone else in power or whatnot to do that for us. And actually it's us. We're the only ones that are going to change the world. So that's a bit of a long introduction, but let's see where it goes. So let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. So I think 2024 for a lot of people was kind of a pretty epic year. A lot of transition and change, new beginnings, endings that eventually lead to new beginnings. Big changes as far as that I've seen, divorces, moving countries, changing jobs, coming to a whole different belief system and perception of life and existence itself. I mean, it's been really huge. And if you haven't noticed, time has been going very, very quickly. Like, we're really moving at a very different pace right now. And there's so much information coming in, and there's so much disclosure, and there's so many truths being exposed. And it's a lot, at times very, very overwhelming, I think. And there's been a lot that needs to be processed. And one thing that I want to drop in right now is anything that you have come across, not just in this past year, but for years now, anything that you come across that is embedded with fear or drama or shock factor or Armageddon, dun, 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 anything that is of that nature, we have already been in this, but we're really, really moving into this next year. Discernment that whatever is coming from a place of fear is not coming from truth. And I say that because love is the ultimate truth, and love does not induce fear. A mother, when she's truly coming from a place of unconditional love for her child, will never induce or inflict fear upon them. If a mother, for example, were to induce fear in their child, it would be considered manipulation. It would be considered abuse. There's no mother in her natural, healthy state of being that would ever want to inflict fear in their child. So I like to look at micro and macro, right? So just how we would want a parent to be with us or a partner to be with us, we should have those same expectations or standards. Standards is a better word for it, with society and those that are running it. And I think if people can see through the bullshit, I'm going to put it really bluntly, and recognize that which is being induced and enforced via fear is not true care and is not true love. Now, why am I dropping this in here? Because discernment is going to be one of the currencies that is going to really help guide us into this next year where so much is happening. I mean, again, it's a continuation, right? But I know that we've been in a year 8 and now we're moving into a year 9 in numerology, and 9 is about completion. And when we come into completion, it's really it's important to understand what are the cycles that we're completing. What do you want to call it? Karmic cycles, belief system cycles, cycles that we've been moving through as a collective, cycles of society that are no longer working. Like if you haven't noticed, systems are starting to crumble. And in all honesty, this is a fantastic thing. It's really great. But the transition is messy. Right? So the reflection, I'm just dropping that in because your greatest guide right now is going to be heart and love, like real, true, unconditional, compassionate love, because that is your true essence. And what we're moving through and what we have been moving through is, some people will call it an awakening or an ascending. I like to call it a remembering. You're just waking up like from a dream and remembering who you truly are. So we're at this collective still point, this collective point of reflection. And so it's really, if you're going to take these days to maybe journal a little bit, or just to sit in contemplation and meditation and thought and being, I think things around this time of year that are really wonderful to do are just things that really invite us to be, whether that's sitting in meditation or painting or drawing or writing or taking a walk in nature or sitting by the sea or at the top of a mountain or in, a forest, and just really inviting ourselves to come into being, because I think this is all what we've been working towards, and this is coming back home, is we are human beings. We are not human doings, and we have been in overdrive. We have been very much of the mind and in the mind and not fully integrated with our entire being, which our being includes body, heart, energy, emotions, feelings, sensations, intuition. It's more than just the mind, and it's more than just the left part of the mind. So we've been very compartmentalized as a collective, as a species, as a humanity. And now we're really expanding and broadening into really fitting the clothes that we should be wearing, which is so much bigger than what we've been embodying up until this point. So taking time to really reflect and go, okay, what have I been through this year? What have I learned through the experiences that I've had this year? What have I been shown? And I really want to invite you that as you reflect, I want to invite you to not look through the eyes of the victim. If, for example, you might have gone through suffering and pain, and, some people have gone through some pretty horrific things. What would it be like if you didn't look at it through the eyes of the victim of this happened to me, but look at it through the eyes of, this is all an experience. This is the school of life. What have I learned? What have I been shown? What has been the opportunity in this? What has been the gift on the other side of it? Maybe you're not there yet, or maybe you have seen it, but there's always an evolution. There's always something that if we choose to look at it through that lens, there's always I don't want to say a reward to reap, but the reward isn't like, it's not a, what is it? Like a consumeristic thing, right? It's not a physical thing. The reward tends to be growth, evolution, a expansion of awareness, an expansion and deepening of your consciousness, an evolution in your consciousness. That is the true reward. So if you look back at this year, how have you grown through it? How have you changed as a person? How have you become more of who you truly are? And if you haven't felt that, if you haven't felt like, God, I feel like I've been not true to myself. I have not been authentic. I have been compromising myself too much. I've been overstepping my own boundaries too much. I've been working at a job that I hate and it doesn't make me happy and it doesn't make me feel fulfilled, or I'm in a relationship where I can no longer grow and I feel stagnant and stuck, or whatever it is. If what you're seeing is not making you happy, then this is your choice point to really take life by the reins and go, how do I want to change it? What do I want to create as the painter of the masterpiece that I'm creating by having this human experience? And of course, you're guided by your oversoul and, whatever you want to believe that's around you in the unseen world and in the seen world. And we're co-creating this as we go. But our intention, our focus is so powerful. We have no idea. And we're really as we're moving out of these old systems, it's not just the systems of society that are old and that are crumbling because they're no longer serving us, because they come from fear and manipulation and greed and, destruction. We're seeing through all of that and going, no, I don't want that anymore. But we're also doing that internally. What part of your own inner shadow have you not looked at? What part of you is still keeping you small? What part of you is sabotaging yourself? What part of you is not choosing love? And what I mean by choosing love is even just in the simplest act of what makes me feel like I'm in a state of love in my life. What is it that I want to do as a human that brings me absolute joy and fulfillment and bliss, so that we're no longer just kind of slaves to a system where you have to go to work to make money, to pay the bills. And yes, of course, we're still in this reality. I get it. And if you really are true to your heart, there will always be a way for you to do what you love. There just will, but you have to believe it. You have to believe it. And if we are going to change reality, and if we're going to change the whole system, and nobody's going to come in and do it for us, we have to be very clear with our vision. And to be clear with our vision, we have to be very clear with what that vision feels like to us. Do we want to feel like a victim? Do we want to feel like a slave? Do we want to feel trapped? Do we want to feel scared? Do we want to feel hurt? Do we want to suffer? Do we want to... all of these things that we've all been there, we've all experienced it. And it's not to vilify it. It's not to say, no, that's terrible, I want to get rid of it. But look at it as, okay, I've played the suffering card. I've played the card of doing what I don't love. I've played the card of being in a relationship that feels too small for me. I've played the card of being hard on myself and being a critic and judging myself and judging others. Or I've played the card of being in competition, or I've played the card of scarcity, right? There's so many that I could list. We get to drop that now and take what we learned and how we saw that, like that was a class. We were on a course, right? If this is the school of life, that was a curriculum that we were on. And we kind of decided that as a collective, like, okay, part of this experience is growing through suffering and discovering that which we are not. Right? So if we are love, we have been learning what it's like to be out of love. We've learned what it's like to be in suffering and in hatred and in division and in segregation and in judgment. And I think we're coming to the point where we can go, enough of that, right? And now what about evolving through joy and bliss and authenticity and collaboration and compassion and community? we get to choose that and we get to create that. So this is where moving into intention is so powerful, like for your personal life individually, to really, really drop into your heart, really drop into and connect to your soul. What does my soul desire to express through me as the human vessel? This is something I actually say to myself every single morning as I ground. I get out of bed, I put my feet on the ground, I stand up, I kind of shake it out, and I root myself into the earth, and I connect up to, the divine, into my higher self. And I say a prayer of like, I am open to receiving that which my soul wants to express through me today. Every single day. I've been doing this for 20 years, maybe more. Because it's really coming to this place of we are a vessel. We are the vehicle. We are not this human body. We have this personality and we're learning to work with it, but we are not just the ego. There was a beautiful snippet of a chat, not a chat, a talk that Ram Dass had given, I don't know when, it seemed like a long time ago. It seemed like a bit of an old video when he was much younger. And he tells a really beautiful story of his first psilocybin trip, where he came to this place of just I am. It's beyond the I am this and I am that. And he goes on to speak about how we're normally functioning on channel 1 or 2, which is like I am either my body or some kind of physical trait, or I am what I do, right? I have some kind of societal role. And when we kind of go up the ladder, as he says, and we tune into these higher channels, we actually recognize that we go from, we're not just the physical or we're not just the role, but we're also just this astral being and this spiritual being. And then we start to see that I am you and you are me, and we're just looking back at each other. And he had this one moment that I really loved. He says, when you start to really see that the person that's in front of you is a being, just having an experience, just as you are. We're all in this school of life, but we come in with a different set of programs, of personalities and childhoods and all of this stuff. So we come in a different package, he says. And so, God, I hope I remember to word this as he does. He said something about, instead of seeing that person as the banker, the bank teller, whatever, if you're going into the bank, this was probably back in the 70s or 80s, you see that it's a being playing the role of a bank teller. And those are two very different things. We like to label things and say, you are this, you are good, you are bad, you are right, you are wrong, you're an achiever, you're lazy, you're responsible, you're irresponsible, you're a mother, you're a father, we love labels, right? Alan Watts talks a lot about how labels really limit the expanse of the periphery of our being and our ability to perceive things that are beyond the labels. So we make our world very, very tiny. But Ram Dass was saying, the moment you see the being behind the role or the character, he had this moment where he's like, oh, that's you in there. How did you get in that one? It's like, how's that one going for you? And it's like, we're all divine. We're all God in these different forms, having these different experiences. And I really remember my psilocybin trip. It was like I was having the experience of being consciousness in all these different forms. I was a tree. I was the root of a tree. I was a part of the peacock feather. I was a butterfly. I was an angle. All of these things. Like, oh, this is consciousness playing, expressing itself, viewing the isness of existence from these different angles and from these different shapes and forms and levels of consciousness. And being human is one of the most complex versions of that, because we do have a certain awareness of our own consciousness. And we have so many, I think in our natural state, we have so many incredible abilities that have really gone dormant because of the way society has been run for a very long time. But that's part of the excitement of this process, is that we're awakening to all of that. So, one thing that I know it's sometimes so much easier said than done, said than felt, because we can still be so conditioned and programmed to believe that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy, that we're not lovable or significant, or that things don't work out for us. We've been so conditioned to be in the victim and to be small and to not trust our own inner knowing and wisdom and intuition and authority. We've been told to stay in the lines. We've been told to do what you're said or else you're going to be punished. We've been told to follow. That whole like the shackles of that, or like it's almost like I see that we've been in this kind of egg. The shell is cracking, the shackles are being unleashed, and we are coming out of the cave. You know, if you've heard of Plato's allegory of the cave. One of the things that you're going to remember is that you are an incredible being, that you are God, that you are the divine, that you are an infinite, immortal, incredible, unconditionally loving soul and being and consciousness. But to zoom that back into kind of reality, because for some people that's like, whoa, Corinne, that's gone too far. Some of you will be like, yes, I'm swimming in it. I love it, right? That's home. And for others, it's like, oh, that's way too abstract. So if we come back into the practical, this is why I say connect to your heart. Because your heart, the true essence and vibration of your heart, and the science has now proven and shown that the heart has a far greater magnetic field and vibration frequency, far stronger and more potent and a bigger field around us than the mind, far greater. So I think if the mind is like 3 feet, the heart is something like 9 feet or something like that. It's you know, we're looking at triple and going beyond. If you really come into your heart and get to know your heart, not like, oh, that person hurt me and so my heart hurts. That's, of course, that's a form of getting to know your heart and your feelings and your emotions and your personality and your inner child and your wounding and your insecurities, all of that stuff. But what I mean is get to know your heart when you're sitting in nature, when you're with an animal, when you're in silence and you're just feeling the breeze. When, you know, I say nature because nature is that it's in that harmonic. Animals tend to be in that harmonic, in that frequency. When you connect to your heart, when you're in those states of being, that's when you really get to know the essence of your heart. And if you've ever done, you know, longer stints of meditation, or if you've done a meditation retreat, or, you know, for some people it comes through psilocybin or through some kind of sacred plant medicine journey, you will tap into a feeling and a state of being that even if you feel like, oh, I haven't known that in my life through the ego, through my personality, you will tap into a state of being that feels so familiar. And that is the state of compassion. That is the state of an unconditional heart that loves so compassionately. And it's warm and it's fuzzy and it's not the kind of love necessarily for like, you know, a person that you're in love with, because that can get a little complicated, right? Unless we're really coming from a very self-aware, you've done the work and you know what's your triggers and what's your insecurities and what's your inner child wound. And, you know, when you really come to a place of wholeness because you've done the inner work, you can tap more into that true heart resonance that is just unconditionally loving, and it just is compassionate. And it's an energy that will take over you and bathe you and enwrap you like just the warmest of blankets or the warmest bath you've ever run. It is just the most wonderful, cozy feeling, and expansive and light and bright. And, you know, a lot of people that have near-death experiences that cross to the other side, they're just blown away by the immense feeling of love. But the heart is a portal. We get to feel that in this state on this side of the veil through our heart. And we're moving from the time of the mind into the heart, but more into not just the heart, but the integration and the rebalancing and the realigning of all of our centers. It's been scientifically proven that the heart has a brain. So everyone places so much importance of the mind, the brain and the head. Yes, okay, it's a great tool. But actually the heart has a brain of its own. And that one, I would say is far more intelligent. but we're bringing it all into alignment. Everything now is about coming into coherence and into alignment and into harmony. So if you spend time getting to know your heart, truly the resonance of your heart and the essence of who you are, then you start to make decisions from that place. What is my heart calling me to do? What am I here to do? What is my purpose? Not based on what do I need to achieve. What do I want to experience? What do I have to give? I think the moment that humanity recognizes we're here to be of service to one another, to the human collective itself, to the evolution of consciousness, to the unfoldment of unconditional love, to being the stewards of this planet and caring for everything that's on it, and doing everything through respect and honor and with love and with care, that will change everything. Because right now it's service to self, right? And actually that true compassion comes in is service to all. Service to others, recognizing that you are me and I am you. This is unity consciousness, right? So it's not like, oh my God, I'm doing this for you, but what am I going to get in return? You'll get everything in return because you're coming from a generous heart. And that compassionate, generous, kind heart will give so much back to you. And then we're not going to be in a hierarchical system. We're going to be in a system of the circle. We're not going to be tit for tat because we're not coming from scarcity. We're coming from abundance and generosity. And so everything will be this mutual, reciprocal, harmonious exchange of energy, because we're recognizing that's all this is a movement of energy, right? So your intentions are hugely powerful, and, set them. I like to use intentions instead of resolutions, because resolutions last for maybe 1 week of January, and then you feel shame and guilt if you haven't set the goal and made the goal, and it's just too much pressure. And for me, it still triggers that old wound of not being good enough, of coming from scarcity, anything that we do out of pressure and fear isn't really going to give us good results. And we're not going to be able to follow through because it's not fun. Kids don't learn through being told to learn. Kids learn through play. So we're still kids inside, right? So doing things out of love. So even if it's a lot of people around this time of year say diet and exercise. Don't think of it as diet and exercise. Think of it as my intention is to truly take care of myself. I'm going to listen to my body, and I'm going to listen to what does it need today. Today it needs a walk. Today it needs a swim. Today it needs sleep. Today it needs protein. Today it needs, fruit. Today it needs more vegetables. Listen to your body. Your body is the wisest piece of technology that's on this planet, but we don't listen to it. We don't trust it. So work with yourself, for yourself, in collaboration with yourself, through love, not, that kind of discipline that is going to come out with the whip if you don't get it right. We're done with that. That's so old hat. We can let that go. What needs to be the motivation for how we move forward is it coming from a place of love? Am I being loving towards myself? Am I being loving towards others? Am I emanating and emitting love? Or the opposite of that would be what we have been doing: judgment, hatred, division, pointing the finger, not taking responsibility, blaming other people, being the victim, being the perpetrator. We get to choose to let go of that. I don't think it's been working for us. I don't see people happy in that way, right? So we get to say, you know what? I've suffered enough. I've been in judgment enough. And I see, and I can reflect upon, I can see the things that I've grown from, I've taken from it, and I can see how I've grown. But for me to get to the next level, I want to grow through gratitude and joy and bliss and collaboration and compassion and love. We are at a choice point. We get to choose. And if we all focus on that, how can we be more compassionate, more kind, more patient, How can we be what Ram Dass said, the perception, have the perspective, sorry, it's quite late at night, I'm tired, that the other is a being having an experience of whatever role they're playing, but they are a being. And actually that being is consciousness, and you are that same consciousness. So we're really not all that different. We've just come in different packages. I really like that. We're just in different packages, and we came in with different programming. But what we're doing is we're coming to this, like, I don't know if nexus is the right word for it, but we're coming to this point, this culmination of we actually even get to let go of all the labels. And we actually get to come back to this kind of what some people are calling the heaven on earth, which is the remembrance of who we truly are. And, I know I say it a lot, but it's like, please remember how beautiful you are. Please remember how special you are. This whole thing of like, oh no, if you think you're special, you're vain. No, it's the people that don't feel good enough and worthy enough and that feel terribly insecure and they're out of love. They're the ones that are vain and pompous and narcissistic because it's the deprivation of love. When there's enough love, one is naturally humble, but also empowered. You should be able to say, I'm beautiful, but that doesn't have to mean that you're vain, right? And I really I think a really beautiful practice. I've been doing this kind of this year for myself, like in the morning and before I go to bed, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, good morning, beautiful. Good night, beautiful. Because it's just really loving. I'm not being like, oh, you so good looking. Like, no, it's not ego based, right? It's genuinely like, good morning, beautiful. I love you. How are you today? That we can embrace ourselves and what's the word I'm looking for? The word escapes me, but that the moment we can greet ourselves with love, just as simple as good morning, beautiful, right? So I really want to invite you, as you're moving through these days and as we're moving into a new calendar year, please keep in mind that it's still winter. The reason why I say the new year for the calendar year is because it's totally against the grain of nature. Completely against. Everyone thinks that January is the month where you have to get all your shit together and all your ducks in a row and all of your New Year's resolutions. No, this is deep winter. We've only just entered winter on December 21st. So we are in deep, deep winter. This is a time of reflection. This is a time of digestion, of processing. This is a time where everything is under the soil and in the darkness. You are planting the seeds. They're not meant to be harvested right now. So don't feel like by January 31st, if you haven't done 101 things on your list, that you failed. No, just literally plant the seeds and then wait till March. Wait until March for them to really come through the ground and actually start growing and being seen in the world. Don't put the unnecessary pressure on yourself. You're meant to go slower. You're meant to be more still. You can start creating, visioning, drawing up what you're wanting to bring into manifest form, but you have time. Take time. Also, time is an illusion, right? But just take time. Remember, how can you do what you're doing by way of love? If you're pushing yourself and you're forcing yourself and you're expecting yourself to be a certain way and you're criticizing yourself and you're judging yourself and you're being hard on yourself, stop. Take a step back and check in and realign. How can I do this in a more loving way? Because if you treat yourself with more love, you'll treat others with more love, and the world will become a more loving place. But it has to begin with us, right? I know you know this. I know those of you listening, I know you know this. But we need to remember. I think another thing that I want to drop in, and my focus for my work is shifting a little bit. I mean, I'm still doing the coaching around relationship and authenticity, but I'm actually coming more into a space of doing soul readings, remote view soul readings, which is really going straight to what I would call the source. to understand what you are going through in your life, and is going to a much higher, like, bird's eye view of your experience, to understand why are you going through maybe some kind of physical suffering or emotional suffering or challenge or stuckness or whatever, but it's going to a soul perspective, because I think we're in a time now where we don't have to do all of the processing and the analyzing and we're going into the quantum. So we get to shift through things much quicker. However, what that means is you can't hold on to the old archetypes of the victim. This happens to me. I can't do anything about it. It means, and I don't mean that to say that with sarcasm or in a patronizing way. I want to be compassionate towards that. But at some point we have to say enough is enough. And we are the creator of our life. And if that hasn't been working for us, then we really get to choose. But that means taking self-responsibility, not playing the victim, not sabotaging ourselves. Stop being so judgmental with ourselves, right? It means that then when our soul says, this is what's going on and this is why it's connected, then it's up to us to take action. The human is good at taking action. The soul is good at telling us why, or what is kind of happening. What is the interconnectivity of all things? Maybe even what is the lesson that we're needing to learn? How has this experience come up in our lives as an opportunity for us to heal, grow, evolve? So I find that as I'm moving more into doing that kind of work, it's not that it's the instant, take a pill, quick fix. But I think we can move through things much, much quicker, because we're going more into the energetics and into the frequency and into the language of the soul rather than the language of the ego. It's very important to get to know our personality first. But then I think we can really shift into this, when I say a higher state of being, I don't mean that in a hierarchical way. I just mean that it's like we've kind of gone up another ladder and it's just a different dimensional experience, right? It's just a different frequency. It's a different bandwidth. One isn't better or worse, but it is different. And I mean, it is an evolution. I'm not going to lie. It is an evolution, but there's nothing wrong if we're still on level 1 and 2, right? That's part of the process. That's part of the game. It's like, you think of it as like a video game, right? You have to move through the levels in order to climb up the levels, right? And get to the end of the game. However, I think they're kind of, oh God, dare I say shortcuts? I think they're just ways of getting there faster, but we have to let go of the old ways, and we have to really embrace the magnitude and the wisdom and the power of who we truly are, and listen to our souls, listen to our heart, which is the portal that connects us to our soul and to source itself. So explore that if that intrigues you, or if you want to work with me personally, you're more than welcome to be in touch. But know that you can move through things quickly if you go into a certain energetic field with this, and getting out of the labels and the story, the narratives. And you've heard me speak a lot about that, so I'm not going to mention that here. So, okay, just in reflection and the invitation, take the time to reflect on this past year, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of, how have I grown? What have I learned? What have my experiences shown me? Who am I today? In what ways am I more me? In what ways am I not enough of who I truly am? And what do I still need to let go of? And then the invitation is to get to know the resonance of your heart and really begin to converse with your heart. What does my heart want to experience? What brings meaning and purpose to my heart? Not via ways of needing to achieve, like the old societal standard of you need to collect all these accolades and degrees and be successful. No. What does my heart and my being and my soul want to experience? That feels purposeful and meaningful, that matters, that feels like I'm contributing to the whole here. And in what ways can I show up that's just more loving towards myself, towards others? And how can I envision a world and a future, and this next year, let's be specific, where there is just a lot more love and compassion? And even as the 3D world gets chaotic and messy and louder, how can we walk that line together, hand in hand, choosing love, choosing compassion, recognizing, remembering that we are powerful and that we are the co-creators of our lives and this life that we weave together by being a collective. So I'll leave it at that and make of it as you wish and create your own, whatever I haven't said, but hopefully it's inspired a thought of contemplation for you, and trust it, follow it, create it yourself. You are the weaver, right? I just feel like I'm a bit of a messenger, but you can take with it and run with it in whatever form you would like, and that feels true to your heart. And let, authenticity and integrity and truth and honesty and kindness and, that humbleness that comes from a place of just love, not making yourself smaller, but just that beautiful, gentle, soft, kind-hearted state of being, which is who you truly are. That is unconditionally loving, and that is incredibly worthy and absolutely divine. So fly from that place, my friends. I want to take a moment to just thank you for this year, for those that have been following and that are a part of this, etheric conversation, and just, reminding us all that we're in this together, that we've chosen to come here together, and that we're evolving through the pains and the joys of this crazy, wacky, wild journey, ride of being human. And just remember that you're never alone in it. And just thank you, just loving you. And as always, take it or leave it as feels right for you. And as always, always, always loving you from afar. Happy New Year. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.